Ichino set up his toilet on the opposite side of the catwalk, as far away from his tent as possible. On his first attempt, he tried holding onto the railing, but his upper body wouldn't stop tipping forward. He had to press hard with his big toes to not lose his balance. Flexed as tight as eagle claws inside his sneakers, those toes were the only thing keeping him from falling onto his face or his bum. He didn't dare miss the target. He looked down between his legs to see if his waist was dropping into the plastic container he'd placed on the catwalk. It had taken him a while to come up with this solution. At first, he'd used plastic bags to store his feces, but they were useless at containing the smell, and he worried about them leaking. But then a stomachache one day had prompted his support team to bring him rice porridge for breakfast. After 3 meals of the stuff, he'd finally started to feel better. And it had occurred to him then that the porridge containers were the perfect size for a makeshift toilet. The stench was awful in the limited space of the catwalk, but once he snapped the lid back on and wrapped the container up tight in a plastic bag, the air was breathable again. As soon as he put in his request for empty containers, his support team procured a dozen and sent them up a few at a time. He used each container once before sending them all down, and his team washed and dried them carefully before sending them back up again. This time, after sealing up his waist, Chino stood for a moment with his hands on the railing, gazing down at the unchanging view of the city. The sun was just beginning to poke its face over the horizon, and the first flush of dawn had spread through the clouds. Buildings of different heights downtown and the towering apartment complexes reminded him of a jungle. He could see a line of trees along the roadside and more trees in Yeouido Park, off to the right. May was the color of new leaves. The Omokyo Bridge, where he'd played as a child, was now all concrete, but the stream below still flowed as true as ever into the Hangang River. This perch that Chino had clambered up to a month earlier in the dead of night was the top of a chimney at the edge of a public power plant. It stood 45 meters high, similar to a 16-story apartment building. He was used to most apartment buildings nowadays being 20, 30 stories, which was maybe why the chimney hadn't looked all that tall or made him dizzy to look down from it. But the catwalk encircling it was so narrow and yet so open on all sides that, at first, he'd very nearly walked right over the railing into thin air. The chimney was 6 meters in diameter, and the catwalk was 1 meter wide and about 20 paces in circumference. No, only 16 paces, in fact, since he couldn't count his sleeping area.